Smart water.
Well, week 5 is done. These weeks are flying by. At least that's kind of the way I feel about it.
They're starting to cook right along now.
Yeah, they are. We're halfway.
Tony Sabella with you, along with Vhigh and MoranAconda. Of course, you know me as TSibs. We are here for another edition of LGAHLPSN this week. I have to remember that. And we are talking week 5, everything week 5. And, of course, as always, Vhigh and MoranAconda, thanks for joining me this week. And we got a lot to talk about. A lot of things going on, including the beating finally. Somebody stopping Jay Claus. We'll be talking about that a little bit today.
Well, it's good to be here, Sibs. Another week gone in the LGAHLPSN. That sure is a mouthful there, but another week gone. We are finally past the halfway threshold here and kind of scooting our way along. You know, it's going to be getting into big time playoff mode here very shortly. So, you know, the races are really starting to heat up, and some teams are starting to make some moves, I think.
Yeah, we got some shakeups a little bit in the standings here, but you know, looking through a bunch of stuff this week, it looks like we're starting to see some new names on the Who's Hot list and power rankings throughout the league. We've seen some pretty good games this week. We're going to see a few more this upcoming week. We got several things to talk about. There's been a lot of stuff going on. It's been a busy season.
We'd also like to. Oh, sorry about that, Sibs. Go ahead, buddy.
They also still plenty of transactions going on too. Moves. I kind of thought it was going to quiet down for a little bit, and it really hasn't happened.
I didn't get a chance to count them all up this week. I was kind of in the process of doing that, but we kind of ran out of time. But I mean, the list was still long for sure, and there's definitely more trades being made as we speak. So, you know, speaking of trades being made. You know, we have a trade deadline show that we're going to be doing. It's a trade deadline special. We're going to be running it the Sunday of trade deadline. We're going to be doing it live, kind of like they do on TSN for the NHL, for the real trade deadline. We're going to be right here bringing it to you live, covering trades and moves that are being made that day. You know, and kind of getting some GMs on the show with us to chat. And, you know, I think that's going to be a great show, and I think it's a great idea to get a lot of the other GMs involved and get them talking, you know, not necessarily talking about who they're making trades for or whatever, you know, obviously, but, you know, trades that they may have made or trades that they saw somebody else made. And, you know, I think that's going to be a great, very, very fun show for us. What day is that on again? It's Sunday.
It is on
the 12th?
Let me tell you.
Yeah, June 12th.
Sunday, June 12th at 4 p.m. Eastern. We're going to start an hour before the trade deadline ends for the rest of the season, not just the weekly. And we're going to, like you said, have some GMs on. I've gotten responses from a plethora of GMs through the GM chat. We're going to have to figure out how we can get them on, if we have to do a couple at a time or however, but we're going to get a chance to bring people on so they can talk about their team and, you know, how they're looking heading towards the playoffs and what parts they've added or subtracted so they could add and things of that nature. So I'm really excited about that show. It's going to be something different, something fun. We're going to have a lot of people involved. You know, might be a little stressful to run, at least over on Sib's side, but it's definitely going to be a fun show for sure.
Yeah, it'll really be interesting to do it live while trades are being made. we're obviously not going to tell everybody what they should do with their team, but we're basically, it's going to be like a read and react, what we wind up seeing happening, and then, what is that going to mean to this team? What do we think it means? And so that's, it'll be interesting to see what happens when we go live. Well, obviously we'll have some trades to talk about that have happened a day or two beforehand later on this week, but we'll get a chance to actually, maybe we'll see some things happen at the last minute. You guys can refresh my memory for Season 1. I don't remember what it was like right at the trade deadline. Did we have a lot of transactions happen right there towards the end?
Absolutely.
Yep.
I know us. I mean, we were we were right down to the wire on a couple. Like just sweating it out. So yeah, from what I saw, there was trades being made right up until the last second, basically. Guys were really wheeling and dealing. It was fun. Like, I mean, not that trading a guy is it's tough for the guy, and it's tough to get rid of guys. It's not just, there are GMs out there who make trades just to make trades, but making a trade is a it sucks sometimes. It's a guy that you may not want to get rid of, but you have another positional need. But it's fun. It's fast, furious, and trades are made literally by the minute.
Yeah, it's when people are making trades, it's kind of hard to sit here and talk about it because you feel like you're kind of walking on eggshells because you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. However, GMs in this league have to run their team like a business. They have to do what they think is best for their organization. For instance, Rochester today, who we'll be talking about here in and out of the show, they just lost Abdeel to the NHL. He got called up this afternoon. So they may be making trades to try and fill that goalie spot now. And, sometimes you're making trades and it's not even something that you wanted to have to do, but now you're filling a spot because somebody got called up. That's the position that you're in the AHL.
Yeah, I was funny because I was kind of looking over the rosters from last year. Some of the guys who were performers, looking back at some of the stats from last season, and you realize how many guys, who were stars last year who are now in the NHL, who are, the AHL lost a lot last year, and I think that was anticipated because things had to shake out the first season. But there's a lot of guys, a lot of stars from last season who we don't see anymore, and so we're starting to see some other guys now rise up, and they're going to start getting taken to the NHL. But the good thing about that, though, is we still have a bigger pool of players to pull from and bring up. It stinks to be you guys because you've got to do something about those call-ups. But it is, you have a bigger pool to pick from. We're finding guys. I think every team probably has that success story, and maybe that's kind of, one of the things we should think about when we talk about unsung heroes later on. There are guys who have been called up who are just doing great stuff for us. I know for our team, Jeff Tremblay has been fantastic in goal and has been a tremendous positive for us. Has helped our team get back on track a little bit. And I don't know if we necessarily would have found that guy in the training camp last season. But this season, there's a lot more of a pool to grab from. So even though the AHL teams are missing them, we're losing players to the NHL. You still have a bigger pool now. We're finding these gems.
Yeah, well, we found you on the training camp last year, Sibs. That was a
well, like I said, there's a lot of
score right there, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I'm interested to see what's going to happen next year. To be honest, I'm always the guy looking ahead to next year already. But next year, the prospects thing is going to be enforced. It's going to be no ifs, ands, or buts. Guys aren't going to be able to be brought up to the AHL if they're prospects. It's really going to make, so hopefully there's a lot of prospects out there at least getting their 15 games in the CHL to become amateurs so they can at least be brought into the AHL at that point. But, next year that stuff's all gone. There's no more bringing up prospects. So, this is kind of the dying season of the prospect playing in the AHL on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point this St. Louis Cardinals jersey behind me. I did hang up in honor of Abdiel, fellow St. Louis Cardinals fan. But anyhow, we did put a poll question up. It's one that's been being asked for several weeks now. I know Bulging Twine has mentioned it. Mooner's mentioned it. It is, which goalie build is the most effective, and is it stand-up, hybrid, butterfly, or each has its strengths and weaknesses? Right now, hybrid's leading the way with 7 votes, 43%, but butterfly's not far behind at 31. There's only 1 vote for stand-up, and 3 votes for each has its strengths and weaknesses. Probably could have left that one out of there, but just curious as to what the goalies think. Sibs, what do you think about that?
I go with butterfly mostly. I did hybrid for the longest time. I do butterfly because I feel like there's a bigger issue for the goaltender to make low saves, and so I try and overcompensate with that by using a build that's supposed to be better for the lower saves. It also depends on the players. It depends on the forwards. I don't see, and I'm going to wind up regretting saying this, but I don't see a lot of sniping or a lot of good, well-aimed shots that are up high that go to corners. A lot of the stuff is low. You're seeing a lot of guys now slap passing it, trying to get that past the goaltender. There's a lot of low goals that are scored, and so I feel like the butterfly is a better build because of the frequency of the shots in the lower half of the net. I'm sure there are guys who completely disagree with me on that, but that's why I use it. I think that's why a lot of other guys use that same build.
Yeah, it helps on those 180-foot shots, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of great defense in this league. It's tough to get into those areas and make those snipe shots, to be honest. To get into that high slot, that's the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow if you can get in there unscathed and actually get a shot to try and pick those corners. You got to make good plays in this league to get the puck in the back of the net. And I think I don't play goalie. I'm terrible at it. I have 2 games played and a 8.0 goals against average. So I don't know anything about playing goalie, but I do know that it's tough to get into those high percentage scoring areas in this league and get clean shots on net.
Yeah, it is. It is very tough, especially when you're talking about a league like LG where you've got 30 teams in the AHL that we're playing against, and just about every one of them, almost 3 lines deep, at least have competent enough players to keep you out of those areas. And then when you're talking better defense and better forwards back checking and things of that nature, it's tough to get anywhere close to skating yourself right into a spot at the high slot just off the corner of the net and picking a corner. The way systems are run these days, it is definitely very tough to get there. So it is probably a smart move to take your goalie and build him, from the ground up, so to speak, and work with how well he can move across the crease back and forth, and how well he uses his pads as opposed to covering the top corner, where if you come out and cut off the angle, you're probably going to stop it anyway.
No, I don't. Well, yeah. One thing we would like to talk about, and shifting gears here, one thing that we're seeing a lot, and we're seeing a lot of GMs talk about, and a lot of players talk about, it's kind of a hot topic around the league right now, is, not saying that people are doing it, and not really, but, I know, pretty sure it's probably happening, but, we just wanted to point out to everybody out there, in a game, when you're playing, And and if you're lagging or you have a bad connection, it's against the rules to actually quit and act like you lagged out. It always seems to come conveniently right before a period ends. All of a sudden, boom! Oop! I lagged out. Sorry. That stuff seems to be happening a lot more and more and more lately. And I just want to put a message out there to everybody. We're all here on the honor system. We're here to play straight up. If you're lagging, you got to deal with it. You can't just quit. It's basically cheating. And I really wish that the league would find some sort of way to start policing this and get this taken care of, because there's more and more GMs talking about teams doing this on a weekly basis, and it's something that's become quite a large issue across the league. And it's just, I think it's dirty. I know for a fact that people are doing it because I was in a different league at one point in time. It was not LG, and these guys talked about doing it. And I was like, you can't do that. That's cheating. That's not playing the game straight up. That's like taking a mulligan on the third tee in a golf tournament. If nobody's around, well, hey, nobody sees me, then, it never happened. That's just not cool. You got to play the game straight up. You can't be quitting, and teams are even, I feel teams are even backing out of games at period breaks to kill momentum, and, just play the game straight up, guys. That's all we ask. That's all anybody asks, and it's not just us saying this. Trust me, we are in a bunch of chats with GMs across the league that are seeing this and talking about it. So it's not just us talking about this. We'd just like to see clean and fair play across the boards when it comes to this issue here.
Yeah, I agree. Can you hear me all right?
No, it's you're pretty choppy again, like it was earlier, and I'm not sure where Sibs went to, but it's definitely something. Just play straight up, guys. If you're lagging, suck it up and deal with it. It's just, that's all anybody asks. That's all anybody ever wants. It's pretty shady if you're backing out of games. We're not specifically pointing fingers at anybody or anything like that, but just play the game straight up, guys. That's all that's asked.
I think you're always going to have people who are going to find, or at least try and find, a whatever benefit they can get from something. You're not going to stop everybody. There are going to be people who are going to say, look, they can't tell if I'm doing that or not. So, if I feel I need to do it, I'm going to do it. You want to believe that we have total maturity throughout the league, and I hope we do, but I'm realistic. I know that's not going to be the case. So you hope that people play within the rules and they don't try and take advantage of loopholes, but unfortunately it's human nature to do that, and we're going to see it. We're going to keep on seeing it. Hopefully, through some peer pressure, we'll be able to, get guys to realize that it's a bit immature and stupid to do that. In the end, it's a video game. What are you getting out of this? Are you just because you lag out and you win? In the end, we're playing for pride. We're not playing for some, couple of $100,000 prize here. So, just do your best playing the game the right way. And there's no point in going too far and doing something stupid just because you want to win the game. I just don't get it.
Me either. It's cheating the system. It's just like anything in life. If nobody sees or hears me doing this, then that means it's okay. Well, you know what? Your conscience should get the better of you. And, just all anybody wants is a fair game, wants it played straight up. I know personally I've suffered through some massive lag in this game and not quit, and it sucked. It really sucked. But, hey, that's the nature of the beast. Until something gets fixed on that end, we're always going to have to deal with it. That's all we really wanted to talk about on that subject. Kind of wait until we get Vhigh back here. But I just kind of wanted to give you a rundown of what we're doing on the show this week. We're going to be covering the Eastern Atlantic Division, which is the last division that we have to cover in the league. We're going to be going through our standout players of the week. And then we're adding a new segment to the show this week that is called Unsung Heroes. And we're going to kind of go over, we're working with GMs across the league who are sending us lists, or not lists, but their suggestions for players on their team and even players on other teams, as we've found already. People suggested that as well. Of players that don't necessarily get all of the accolades. They don't pile up the points. They don't get talked about on a weekly basis on the show. These are guys that grind it out. They're super important to their teammates. They're great teammates, and they're the glue guys. They're the ones who hold everything together and get it done for their team. And we're going to start spotlighting those guys and, really, bringing them to light a little bit and letting the light shine on them. And then at the end, we're all going to have a game of the week that we've chosen as far as, what games we think are going to be great games this week. And, it should be a good show here. We just wanted to get those few house cleaning things out of the way here before we get rolling. We're going to roll into the standout players and the power rankings for the week. And we've just now gotten Vhigh back on our broadcast, so welcome back. And I guess we're going to go with the goalies again first, Sibs, or do you want to start somewhere else?
No, that's fine by me. Everyone gets a chance to see the power rankings, and I don't necessarily talk about the top three that are listed there.
Absolutely.
The one guy I do have to talk about, though, because he is in the top three, and because, again, another good week for Perkins Pancake House. His one loss this week was an overtime loss to the Phantoms, who had a nice week. We'll talk about them later on. They had a pretty good week, beating a couple of big teams. But Perk definitely with a couple of big wins, a shutout in this week's games. So 4 wins and 1 overtime loss. His goals against, right around 1.5, 2 for the week. Just another nice week for him. 1.37 goals against. I look at the saves too, and for him, he's got, he had 60 saves on the week. We have a couple of guys in the rankings who probably had good games, but not a lot of shots against. And so I try and talk about the guys who took a lot of heat and did well. Mooner tends to be one of those guys who's on the list just about every week. Not this week, of course, but Perkins at the top of the list because of the amount of work that he got and wound up having a shutout in this one. And then a couple of other guys who are a little bit further down on the list that I want to talk about. I may have mentioned it once before, but I've been wanting to talk a little bit more about him, and that's O'Neill 15 from the Albany Devils. He went 5-1, 2.18 goals against, 72 shots, 72 saves made by him this week. And, so he got an awful lot of work. And, again, some good wins for the Devils, beating Rockford in the last game of the week 2-1, where he went up against 13 shots and only let 1 in. He had a 17-shot game against Lake Erie and wound up helping Albany win that one 4-3. So O'Neill's been pretty steady. He's got a 14-5 record on the season with 2 overtime losses, and he's quietly having a nice season on an Albany team that has made a lot of moves, and that can be hellish for the goaltender, because if you're not absolutely sure what your guys are going to do because they're changing every week, it can really make it tough to figure out, what is this guy going to do? Now, the puck is in the zone at a certain point. Mm-hmm. Am I covering the shooter? So I think what he's done has been great no matter what, but I think the fact that he's been on a team with a lot of change, it makes it even more of an interesting season for him and a really solid year that he's had so far. The third guy I wanted to mention, and man, I wish he had a better name, but it's Dirt Burglar 169. I wish you guys would really pick better screen names. Again, another guy who got a lot of work this week, went 3-2, two goals against, 80 saves on the day, on the week. And so he got an awful lot of work and wound up having a fairly decent week, with a 3-2 victory over the Chicago Wolves a couple of nights ago being really the highlight of that one, letting in 2 goals on 16 shots. The game before that, where they beat the Reign 2-1, 23 saves out of 24 shots. So I don't care who you're playing. When you go up against 24 shots and you only let in 1 goal, that's that's worth mentioning. So Burglar, you get a star for this one this week. Those are the guys who I think were the real standouts at that position.
Hashtag branding.
Yeah. Burglar. You gotta love it. Oh, man.
Yeah, that's funny. Are
we
we
defense, I guess, now, Jonathan?
That depends. How does my mic sound?
You sound like $1 million.
Oh, I wish I had $1 million. Okay, so on defense, there's definitely some names that have slid up in the power rankings here. There's a couple of Rochester guys that have been here all year. They were hot. Sean the Boss and QC Chief 27, but I'm inside a box. Jumped up with a big week this week. He had a 3-win week. He had 5 points plus 3. He's a lefty for the Baby Sens, and he had a big week alongside Ether MR from the Wolves. He also had a big week, but the one that stood out to me was Larkin71 from Providence. I am looking at defense here, but he had 12 points this week, which is it's pretty big. He had 3 goals and 9 assists, but he was only 2-1, so I don't know how you can take a defenseman and see him at 2-1, see him up there. He's the only defenseman on your top 20 list that has a loss, except for the guy in 20th there. Everybody else was undefeated this week, but he worked his way up inside the league's top 10 in the rankings. But averaging 4 points a game as a defenseman, I think that pretty much speaks for itself as far as offensive talent goes. I think Larkin71's definitely getting my star for the week. Other honorable mentions: Boss Brawler from the Gulls, Jay Nasty from the Sound Tigers. He was 3-0, had 5 points. But those 2 from the Rochester Americans, they were a plus 15 and a plus 14. And unless I'm going insane, this is only for 3 games, right? This is only this week.
Yeah.
Plus 14 and plus 15 in 3 games for defensemen. That's insane. So yeah, a lot of good defensemen sliding up the list here. We're starting to see that it feels like this league is being built around defense. We've got a lot of high-powered forwards, but to me it really seems like this year's defensive core, as far as the league as a whole, is much, much, much deeper and much tougher to play against. We got a lot of guys that, especially on top teams, that have a lot of hits and very little penalties, putting up good numbers and points. I'm talking like 20, 30 points for a defenseman, things of that nature. It's incredible to see defensemen putting up numbers like that.
Yeah, I played some pro between seasons. I played some pro with Larkin, and he's a really good player, very solid, good team-oriented player, and it's not surprising to me that he's jumping up. I played some club early on with Ether, and again, another good, solid player who really does have a good team-oriented mindset. And so good to see these guys jump up and get some recognition. They are easily very solid AHLers and could very well be in the NHL later this year, if not next year.
Yeah,
absolutely.
See defensemen put up points is definitely a good sign. Like if you got D-men that are just constantly scoring points. That's that's a damn good thing to have. That's an additional player out on the ice that's putting the puck in the net for you, or setting up scoring chances and scores. But I'm still a sucker for the old school defensive defenseman myself. I like to see those guys, and they're the ones who definitely should be on the unsung heroes portion that we're doing later in the show. On to the forwards. This week, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, believe it or not, J. Claus is nowhere to be found for the first time all season. That's kind of a shocker to me. But hey, you know what? Maybe people are starting to figure it out. I don't think he's really going to get shut down too much, but Rochester did one hell of a job against him this week. The first guy that I want to point out is Rowdy X51. Rowdy had a great week this week playing for the Binghamton Senators over there. He did finish the week out with a loss, but it was to the Chicago Wolves. He did post a couple of points in that game. He is 9-2 on the season, which is really solid. He's taken only 5 penalties, but he does have 44 hits. This week, he put up an 8-point game against Texas, believe it or not. He had 4 goals, 4 assists. He was a +5 in that game. He had 8 shots on net, shooting 50%. That's pretty stellar, if you ask me. Did not take a single penalty in that game and had 6 hits. And then he did pick up a 5-point game against Iowa as well, and had a hat trick in that game and chipped in 2 assists to go along with it. He did put another 5 shots at goal, was shooting at 60% that game, and stayed out of the penalty box again. He's only taken 1 penalty in his last 5 games, which is very huge. That does nothing but good things for your team. If you can stay out of the box, then you give yourself the best possible chance to win. So I'm going to definitely point out Rowdy this week for having a pretty stellar week there for Binghamton. And my next guy that I'd like to point out here is I'm going to go right to Ducks fan Waterloo, to be honest. I really like this guy's game. He had a huge game against Syracuse Crunch this week, where he put up 4 goals and 5 assists, was a +11 in the game, en route to an 11-0 victory over the Crunch, which is no easy task, ladies and gentlemen. That's a good team out there, so they must have just had everything clicking in that game. Excuse me, to get up on them 11-0. That's a very tall task. He put 10 shots at net that game, shot at 40%. He did end up taking 1 penalty. But what are you going to do? It's an 11-0 game, and he's putting up 9 points. You can't really scald him for that. And then he did play against Utica Comets, chipped in a goal in that game, and then they also picked up a victory against the Baby Pens, the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins there, chipped in with a couple of points in that game as well. But that big game against the Syracuse Crunch is the thing that put him over the top for me. He had a great week against a very good team, so I just figured I'd want to throw him in there. And then, at the top of my list for this week, I have Killers Anto. Right wing for the Rochester Americans. He was part of that crew that took down Jay Claus's Ice Hogs in a 6-3 victory, and chipped in with 5 points in that game, had a couple of goals and 3 assists, was a +4. Got 4 shots on net in that game, was shooting 50%. Did take a penalty, but hey, you're beating the Ice Hogs right there. That's in the Ice Hogs #1 line, so that's a great job. Also took down the Ontario Reign this week in a 9-2 victory, where he had 6 points in that game. Got a couple of goals and 4 assists, was a +7 in that game as well. Shooting 66.7%, did not take a penalty. The thing I like about this guy's game, I think he is a great player in this league. He's 13-1 on the season, ladies and gentlemen. He has taken only 5 penalties. And then his last game of the week was against the Lake Erie Monsters, who are no pushover. They are a good team out there in the West. He came in with a hat trick, and 5 assists in that game, and finished with 8 points. Was a +5 in that game. 4 shots on goal, scored on 3 of them, was shooting 75%, and did not take a penalty. That's a great week. He is on fire. He's played 14 games in the league in his career so far. He's got 55 points. He's a +38. So everybody keep your eye on Killer Santo over there in Rochester, because he's really putting it together.
Killer Santo, I believe.
Killer
Is
Santo.
his name.
It could be. Yeah. I know a guy named Anto that I used to play for in a different league, and that's kind of why I thought it was Anto. But it could be Killer Santo, absolutely. But either way you look at it, yeah. Either way you look at it, fantastic player.
Yes, sir.
Were we still doing a your own star, your own one of 3 stars?
Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead and give us your star of the week, your number 1 star of the week for over there, Sibs.
Well, I think because I been watching him for a while, and again mentioned a solid week, including a loss to the Rampage, but again the rest of the week solid for O'Neill, 15 from the Albany Devils. He's my goaltender star of the week, and again this team settles down, stops making moves, and just plays the game with the good players they have on the squad. I think they'll do well, and they've got a good guy in goal to help them.
Yeah. On the defensive side, I'm going with Larkin 71. New name creeping up the list. He had a huge week with the 12 points. 2-1 record, but that 12 points out of the defenseman, he was the only defenseman this week that had double-digit points, which is definitely speaking for itself. And not that everything's about points. Normally I talk about people who take few penalties, have a bunch of hits, things like that on defense. But when I see a guy like Larkin, 71, the kind of week that he put together over in Providence, to me that deserves first star.
Yeah, that's a great week. I am going straight to Killer Santo from the Rochester Americans. Once again, his week was fantastic. Part of the crew that finally took down Jay Claus and the Ice Hogs. 3 great games for him this week. He is the leading scorer on the Rochester Americans. He's only lost 1 game on the season, and he's really, really a big part of big reason why that team is just rolling right now, and I see Rochester doing nothing but good things moving forward.
Yeah, and one last point on Larkin. He's 10-3 on the season. He's got 18 points total. So 12 of his 18 points came this week, which is extremely impressive. That just shows he made a huge jump this week.
All right. Well, now we are on to our Unsung Heroes. This is a new portion of the show, new segment that we're going to be adding every week. We ask for participation from the GMs to get us these unsung heroes on their team, guys they'd like to point out that don't quite get all the accolades. They're not the Killer Santos and the J Clauses and of the world. These aren't the guys who get all the flashy points and get all the recognition. These are the glue guys, the grit guys, the guys that come in and day out and get it done for their team. And they're the type of guys that you have to have on a team to be successful. And like we said, we are taking suggestions from GMs, or if you have a guy that you want to nominate on your team, let your GM know, and they will get in contact with us. And we'll see if we can't get them out there and get them on the show, as far as giving them a little pat on the back there. Jonathan, you want to go ahead and lead it off over there? Who's your unsung hero of the week?
Well, the Hartford Wolfpack are having an outstanding season, and we'll talk probably a lot about them for the rest of the show here in and out. But talking to Beefy over there, he was talking to me about General Patton. He's only 5-5 this season, and he's a lefty. But ever since he was paired with Blade Runner GT, they've been and this is a quote from him. They've been one piece of mean business. I call them the Bash Brothers. They hit a lot, which people would say is bad, but they rarely miss, which is what makes them so special together. So he picked General Patton here because he said this move, moving him onto that defensive line, completed his team. It allows his forwards to have free reign of the ice. Basically, what happens is kind of what we talked about in the past, where you've got a defensive pair that seems to have a 15-foot rope tied to each other's waist and kind of moving in sync, left and right, back and forth on the ice, covering for each other when one goes out, bringing it back. And one of the things that they do really well is they are hitting people, like you said, and they're not taking penalties. And one of the things that you hear us talk about on here when we're talking about our stars of the week and our forwards, defense, goalies, all these people that have high statistical categories that we can look up on the LG site, which is kind of why we asked for a little bit of help from the GMs on guys that aren't going to show up in that list. And I think it's pretty important to talk about those glue guys, as they're called, that hold your team together, don't ever get the recognition. At least most of the time, you might have a big game here or there, but for the most part, they show up, they're consistent, they do the same things all the time. They make very few mistakes, and they keep this game, or keep the team together, and keep games within reach. So I think he said Monday night he's going to be playing this defensive pair against the Ice Hogs, which I'll get into a little bit later. But if you trust this defensive pair that we're not seeing in the stat book to go up and play against the highest point scoring team so far this season, there must be something special about them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and jump in here, I guess, and I'm going to go to my unsung hero of the week. JLM actually suggested him, and that is Sassman for the Chicago Wolves. Sass is a good friend of mine. We played together in another league for quite some time. He's a great guy. He's definitely one of those glue guys. He's always got a positive attitude. And to boot, he's a great player. He's got 30 points this season. He's got 17 goals, 13 assists. He's a +4. He's only taken 3 penalties. That's what Josh is, or Sassman, excuse me. He's a solid player. You would be lucky to have him on your team. He's nothing but a good guy. And you got to have those guys. You got to have those guys who are always coming in with a positive attitude, whether, if they're getting screwed over by EA, or, like we all like to say, and point out regularly. He's always got a positive attitude. He's great to his teammates, and he can straight up play. So JLM definitely wanted us to mention the Sassman over there in Chicago, and I think the fact that he's only taken 3 penalties on the year is huge. That's something that I really look at when I'm looking at players, is how many penalties are they taking? How much are they hurting their team? And Josh very rarely ever hurts his team. He's a great player. He gets it done, and Chicago's lucky to have him.
Well, we got another one, another nomination. This one actually coming from J Claus, and it was for Flying Red 527 on Rochester. And the reason J Claus nominated him is because he acknowledges that Flying Red was instrumental in shutting him down in their game against the Americans. He's saying because he followed me around the whole game and denied him the puck. He said Claus also said he's probably one of the 5 best players in the league, and that's damn good praise. Doesn't have the stats he should because of, the way he plays the game and at the times has to follow somebody like Claus. And so big ups to Flying Red 527 from Jay Claus. High praise indeed for on Rochester, and again another team that's just playing phenomenal. And it's guys like this who may not be seen or talked about an awful lot in power rankings and on shows like this one, but we're going to give him some acknowledgement because of the great work he did this week, and obviously Jay Claus very, very much impressed with the work that Flying Red did.
Yeah, I think it's funny that when I was talking to the GMs about unsung heroes, and we definitely got some other nominees in here that I'm going to mention in just a minute to throw their name out here, because otherwise, according to their GM, their name wouldn't be on here. But I thought it was funny when Ryan sent me that. Is my mic okay?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. Ryan sent me that message with Flying Red 527 in it, and literally, like, I don't think him and Jay Claus talked at all in this time period, but literally less than 5 minutes later, Jay Claus sent me the same exact suggestion, and they both basically said why. It was basically he followed around and shut down the league's leading scorer, and was the first one this season to do it. Props to you, man, because so far nobody's been able to do it. And that's not, talking down to anybody else in the league or anything like that. You just stop the best player in the league or the highest scoring player in the league, and that's pretty impressive. But some of the other guys that I got recommendations for were This Is Available 9 and Kepler 14733 for the Providence Bruins. Water Wheels submitted those. Basically, these two have been on the team this year, and I do believe between the two of them they have less than 5 penalties combined on the season, which is really impressive for 2 guys. Also, I got a suggestion from I think it was JD Forthy. Yeah, JD Forthy sent me a nomination. VNM 25. He's his unsung hero. He's solid every time he touches the ice. Never heard anybody say a bad thing about him. Every D-man I've had that has played with him has loved him. So those are just a couple more suggestions. And, this segment will kind of evolve over the next several weeks, and we will be naming more people. We're trying to find kind of a set of parameters to look within to find these players, because we want to be able to find these players on our own, or at least be able to tell people how to find these players as well without just the GM saying so. But like we said, it's tough to do when you're not showing up in the stat sheet every week. And I think it's a really good idea, at least to discuss with other GMs, to find out who that guy might be, because every championship team, every team that makes the playoffs, they've got a guy on that team that they can count on, and if it's an elimination game where they need a win, they're going to put this guy in 100% of the time and not worry about what kind of things he's going to do on the ice. He's only going to help the team, and that's extremely important.
Absolutely. All right, moving on to our final segment of the day. We're going to go right into our Eastern Atlantic Division profile. And this, of course, is the final division that we have to cover, as we've covered the other 3 divisions so far in the previous 3 weeks. This is the division with the Hartford Wolfpack, the Portland Pirates, Providence Bruins, Bridgeport Sound Tigers, Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, Lehigh Valley Phantoms, Springfield Falcons, and the Hershey Bears. I guess we'll go ahead and start off with our own Hershey Bears.
I've got to get out of here, Mike, like now.
Well, it hasn't quite gone the way that we wanted this season, but, it's...
No, Jonathan, you stay right here. You're part of it.
It's starting to turn around. I think things are looking on the up and up We've got our roster set. You know, there's some good, solid players on this team. For you, those of you who don't know, Joyrides is one of my favorite players in the game. You know, he's so fun to play with. The guy is such a smart hockey player, and he always seems to get it done. Jeff
Shocked when he
Tremblay,
was available.
yeah, Jeff Tremblay has been a huge addition to the Hershey Bears this season. You know, he was assigned to us on our training camp, and you know, he's a guy that we pulled up to the team, and he's done nothing but have a great attitude and stop pucks for us. You know, he got the #1 star of the week on a #1 star on I can't remember what day it was, but he did pull a shutout. You know, he's 8-5-2 on the season. You know, but you know, I think things are on the up and up. Of course, myself and Vhigh are the GM and AGM of the team. But you know, it's been a tough season. It's been a long, you know, halfway to this point so far in this season to get here. You know, I think we're slowly starting to turn the corner, but it's kind of like pulling a U-turn in a locomotive. You know, it's getting everybody on the same page and getting them all pulling in the same direction that seems to be the biggest, you know, difficulty for us. But you know, we're getting there, and you know, the season's not over. We are at the halfway point, and you know, I think we're not out of it yet, but got a long way to go here to dig ourselves out of this hole that we've seemed to put ourselves in for the second year in a row. What do you think about that, Jonathan?
Yeah, it can definitely be done. We're not that far back. The way the playoff structure is set, where it's the top 4 teams from divisions that have 8, and the top 3 from 7, and then a wild card team from either division. It's definitely doable. There's 4 weeks left to go, but it's going to be a long haul. We're going to have to work our asses off to get it done. And you know, there's guys on this team. We want to talk about unsung heroes. We picked up a defenseman in Gnarly Barley Boys that our owner traded for to help us out, and I must say I've been delighted to have him. He's a great defenseman, and he's an even better guy. And you know, I think him and Soze working together are doing really well. I think DanMan22 and Brink 1313. Those two are solid players on this team that show up every single night and play the way we know they can. You know, we have a solid team, and we have not performed to this point, and we don't come on here on this podcast and talk about the Hershey Bears on a weekly basis. You know, we're not up at the top of the standings like we want to be, and if we were, we still wouldn't be talking about us all the time. But we know everybody doesn't want to hear us talk about ourselves all the time, and we really don't want to. But in this case, when you're talking about the Hershey Bears, I think there's a lot of guys on this team that don't have recognition through the league because of the way we started the season. But I think when people play against us, especially the last couple weeks as we move forward, and it's going to be tougher as the season closes down, we're not an easy team to play against on a nightly basis, and it's something that I'm proud of, the way that the guys fought, especially this past week, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the season because you never know what can happen in the game of hockey.
Sibs, you got anything to add on the Hershey Bears?
Obviously, it took us a little longer to gel than it did last season. You know, we started out tough last season, wound up coming right back within a week or two, and then got on a roll where things gelled, and you know, players got to know each other, and we wound up having a good group of people who you know, really got to know each other. And I think in a way that's a big thing that has to happen. And you know, we had some issues in some positions, and we had to make you know, some moves, obviously. And you know, it's like you know, trades are like surgery. They are awful when it's happening, hurts like hell, and it takes time to recover. But eventually, it's for the best. And And that's kind of what you do when you make a trade. I think you're sacrificing, some chemistry that it's going to take to get these guys together for the betterment of whatever the trade was made for. Whether you're moving somebody out who isn't helping the way they need to, or whether you're bringing somebody in that you see as a future star who you think can really help us now. So you make those moves, you wait for the dust to clear, and you hope that chemistry happens. And I think that's a little bit about what's been going on with us of late. Really rough start, moves made, and then now we're starting to gel. Guys are starting to get to know each other, and I think we have a lot of talent. We just need to, again, get to know each other and communicate, which I think we're getting better at too. I think communication was a little lacking at the beginning. Now I think we're doing it a lot better than we were before, and I think that's a huge reason why we're in games. We may not win every one of them, obviously, but we're in these games. We're not getting blown out the way we were early in the season, and I think that says a lot about the quality of player and the quality of personnel in general that we have. I think we're going to be a problem for a lot of teams, and I think if things really roll our way, we can sneak into the playoffs and, again, cause trouble for teams.
Absolutely. 5 of our next 9 games are against division opponents, so a chance to pick up some quick points there and really get back on a nice roll. Moving on. Next team in line is the Springfield Falcons. That's a team that I'm going to go ahead and talk about here. It's a team that the Hershey's nipping right on their toes. They are run by Checkmark, who is a left defenseman for them and GM. Voltage Fusion is a left wing and AGM for them, and this is another one of those teams that is just slowly starting to find their way. They had a rough season last season, but there's a lot of new faces, tons of new faces actually, over there in Springfield, and they're definitely a tough team to play against. They went 4-4-1 this week. They picked up points in 5 of their 9 games. And 5 of their next 9 games are against division opponents as well. I think there's a lot of room for improvement for this team. I definitely think they can do it. It's just like us. It's going to be one hell of a run to get to the playoffs if it's done. But never say never. They got a kid out there, Lab Rat, who is a center for them. He's 9-3-1, and this kid's got 41 points. And one of the things that I really like about him is that he's got 21 goals and 20 assists. That's just screams consistency to me. He's a +3 on the season, has a shot percentage of 45.7. And has only taken 4 penalties on the season while racking up 29 hits. That's a good player in my book, and he's a center to boot. He's racking up the goals and the assists as a center. That's very important. But he's definitely a vital part of what they're doing over there in Springfield. And then where was he? Guitar Zan Man 76. He is a right D for them, who's the picture of consistency. This guy is your prototypical shutdown D-man. He's 8-3-2 on the season, so he's picked up points in 10 out of his 13 games played, which is very, very good. You always want to pick up points in every game that you play. He has chipped in with 10 points on the season, with 2 goals and 8 assists. He is sitting at a +2. He has 23 hits. It's good to have those guys on your team, and he sounds like he's a very good shutdown defenseman over there in Springfield. I don't even know some of these names, man. Rixer. He's a good player too over there. He's got 34 points on the season, 15 goals, 19 assists. The hill to climb for Springfield is steep. They are sitting at the bottom of the Eastern Atlantic Division. Well, not at the very bottom, but they're sitting down towards the bottom. And it's going to be a tough hill to climb here, but we'll see if they can put it together.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
next team up is Lehigh Valley Phantom, and I have that team. They are 19-24-2 on the season. Apollo 77 is their GM. Vhigh and TSibs88 is one of the captains, with Charbin the other captain. Interesting team because they've had a couple of good wins. They were on a 6-game win streak recently. They beat Rockford, Hartford, and last weekend last weekend they beat those teams. They started this week with wins over the Gulls, who had Gauthier 26 starting in goal, again one of the top goalies in the league, and of course a win against San Jose with Perkins Pancake House in net. So this team obviously has the talent to do well. Lots of bean pots and Timicide with the leading the team in goals and points. But they play on the same line together, so a lot of their offense is coming when that one line is showing up. Golden Dreams, their lefty, 3 goals, 14 assists, 17 points, a +12 for the season. He is 9-4-1 in the games that he's played. And another lefty, Sigs, I guess is how you pronounce it. He is a +16 also on lefty for the team. He's 9-3-1 this season. Talk about the 2 goaltenders, Peaky Blinders at 11-6. He has a 2.77 goals against. He's basically getting about 13.6 shots per game on him. And, of course, Vhigh and TSibs88, the other goaltender. His record, though, 4-13-2. He has taken he's taken 284 shots, 80 goals. Almost a 15 shots per game on average, which in this league is quite a lot. You see a lot of games where somebody's getting 7, 9, maybe 10 shots against them. To be averaging just about 15 shots on you a game in this league is actually quite a lot. His goals against at 4.56. So, obviously a tale of some issues with perhaps defense in general in some of these games. They've been streaky all season. They lost 7 of 9 to start the year, then went 6-3, week 2, week 3, 3-6. Then they lost 6, then they won 6 in a row. I'm trying to look for a pattern here, but there isn't one. The only pattern I'm seeing is inconsistency. And so
Streaky.
this team, streaky. This team definitely has a lot of talent. I don't think there's any question about that. But, obviously they need all of their lines to be firing at the same time and to be consistent constantly, obviously from game to game. We see that from teams, but, when you see a team that has back-to-back wins against the Gulls and the Barracuda, against 2 of the best goaltenders in the league, they should be able to put string games together and keep it going. And maybe a loss here and a loss there, but you would expect more from these guys. I think they're underachieving. I think they can get above 500 easily and be a playoff team, but they need to do it now. They need to step on the gas, and they need to give a little more support on defense to the rest of the team. TSibs88 is a good goaltender. His record is not indicative of how he plays, and so. Obviously, I think it's a defensive issue altogether with that this team may have to deal with in order to get past that barrier.
Yeah, we're starting to move our way up the division, and we're starting to see some patterns with the teams that are hovering around the 500 mark, and Wilkes-Barre Scranton being no exception there. The one thing that stood out to me before all else, and you guys let me know if I don't sound okay as far as my audio goes. The Penguins are 4-11-1 in 1-goal games, and they are sitting with 43 points at 5th place in the division. If they turn half of those games around, they're sitting in a playoff spot right now. I mean, if they turn 2 of those games around, they're sitting in a playoff spot. But if they turn half of those games around, I mean, we're talking about the 2nd or 3rd place team in this division, and that just shows when you're playing in these 1-goal games how tough they really are. They this past week they only had 3 wins. They had 6 losses. It was a tough week for them. But they played some really tough teams. They played the Wolfpack and the Rampage back to back to end the week, and they actually beat the Wolfpack 5-3. So, I guess like Sib said with the I'm looking for a word and can't find it. I can't. The last team we covered, their streak or whatever, you can't find a word to describe them. Yeah, they are inconsistent, I guess, because they beat the Hartford Wolfpack, who they're only a couple points behind the Ice Hogs this season. That's a tough team, and then they lose a couple other tough games. They lost 4-2 to the Gulls, which is a solid team. They lost a 1-goal game to the Condors. Lost to the Bruins, but this team, they seem like a gritty team. When I'm looking at their roster, they've got some guys on here that everybody in their lineup is right around 500. It's indicative of the entire team. Looks like they're missing some guys from their roster as well, but their leading scorer is Pertuzzi. He's got 37 points. 18 goals, 19 assists, just like Mike was talking about before, showing that there's a guy that does it all. He doesn't just score, he also distributes the puck, and he's a +9 on a team that's 2 games below 500 right now. But they're only 3 points out of a playoff spot, and could see a big jump this week. This week they're playing against the Springfield Falcons and the Bakersfield Condors on Sunday night, and those are going to be 2 tough games, but 2 games that they could have. And Monday night they're playing against the Hershey Bears and the Stockton Heat. And I don't know, that first game Monday against the Bears, that's going to be a tough one for them. But the Stockton Heat, I'm only kidding, kind of. But the Stockton Heat have shown some improvements over the last few weeks, and it's not going to make their schedule any easier as they go down and play the Bruins and the Checkers and the Pirates and the Moose and then the Bridgeport Sound Tigers. It almost feels like when I'm looking at schedules, I feel like their schedule seems to be tougher this week than I've seen most of the other ones. And, it seems to be a common theme when you're looking at these teams sitting in the middle, that they're coming off of a tough week and then they play another grueling schedule. Ultimate Aquaman's their assistant GM over there. He's got 22 points, 5 goals, 17 assists. Excuse me. Jay Lotto's their GM. He's got he's their point leader. I missed him. I skipped over. He's got 39 points with 21 goals and 18 assists. Him and Pertuzzi are neck and neck for their team leading points there. Cold Killa at 30 points, 15 goals, 15 assists. It looks like they've got almost every single person on their team, with the exception of one guy that's got 13 more assists than he has goals, are all sitting right at like the 500 level of points. So they've got a solid lineup that seems to be able to do everything, and if they put something together, they could be sitting in a playoff spot.
Moving on to the Bridgeport Sound Tigers. This is a team that is currently sitting in the first wild card spot of this division. They are sitting in a playoff spot currently. They're sitting with 46 points on the season. They're 21-20-4. They did finish the week out here, winning 4 in a row, which really helped towards that total. They went 5-4 this week. And 5 of their next 9 games are against division opponents. That's going to be a chance for them to pick up some points this week as well. They do have to play the Ice Hogs this week, which could be an interesting game. They have to play against the Ice Hogs. They have to play against the Hartford Wolfpack this week. So they have some hills to climb this week and some tough games. They got the Chicago Wolves on Sunday, Portland Pirates on Monday. There's definitely some very difficult games. They play Rockford on Monday, like I had mentioned. But this is a good team. Their GM is MG2452. He is a right wing on their team. Their AGM is Suleiman, and he's a lefty for them. One guy on this team that I really, really would like to point out is Caesartown QC. This guy is like the prototypical setup man. This is the kind of guy you want on your team. He's a left winger for them. He is 12-2 on the season. He's got 47 points. All right, 18 of them goals and 29 assists. He is your prototypical setup man. In his last 5 games, he's getting 4 assists, 5 assists, 3 assists, 2 assists. Like, this guy is a setup man extraordinaire. He's plus 20 on the season, shooting 35.3%. He has only taken 3 penalties. That is huge to me, like I said, and I will keep saying until I'm blue in the face. If you do not take penalties, you are a great player in this league. It's so key not to put your team at a disadvantage by taking penalties. Got to stay out of the penalty box, and he is doing a great job of that this season. Prototypical setup man. I'd love to have him. If I was a GM. And another guy that I got to point out here is Hockey Town. Hockey Town's finest. Every time I go against this guy in the face-off dot, it's a battle. Him and I always have a great battle in the face-off dot. It's usually 1 or 2 the other way, and it's very difficult. You gotta play the rock paper scissors game with him, as he is very talented in the face-off dot, but he's also very talented on the ice as well outside of the face-off dot. He's 9-5 on the season. He does have 41 points, 26 goals, 15 assists. He is a +1. He's shooting 40% on the season, 22 hits. He's a very good center. He's getting it done for the Sound Tigers this season. And, I always cringe when I see that we're playing the Sound Tigers, and Hockey Town is the guy that I know I'm going to be facing at the dot. They are, like I said, they're currently sitting in a playoff spot, but there's a lot of teams nipping at their heels that want that spot. So, they're going to have to keep continuing doing their thing to see if they can hold that spot or possibly move up in the division. Like I said, they are currently sitting in 4th and 7th in the conference, and they are just 1 game over 500 at 21-20-4 on the season. Next up is the Providence Bruins, and I believe that's going to be you, isn't it, Sibs?
Yes, it is. And the Bruins right now are sitting in 3rd place at 24-19-2. They are led by their GM Water Wheels, and Crazy is their captain on this team, doing a fine job. This team looked early on like they were going to have some issues, and we're not going to be the J-Town 41 team that we saw last year. But in preseason, I wasn't sure what to make of them. But then they started off, fairly well, and then got on a nice streak in the 2nd and 3rd weeks, and have hit a bit of a skid of late in week 5. But they do have talent on this team. Uncaged Austin, a center for the Bruins, we're familiar with. 12 goals, 21 assists. He's the points leader with 33, and he has a -16 on the season. You mentioned this available 9 a little bit earlier on as a possible unsung hero candidate. He is 10-5 with the team, 15 goals, 17 assists, 32 points, but he's at a +4. Again, a couple of other forwards, Jay Fish, 91-30, 17 goals, 12 assists. Larkin, 71, who we talked about earlier on right D, 4 goals, 14 assists, 18 points, and a +5, which I believe is the highest plus-minus of anybody on the team. Half their D-men are at +5. But the problem with the plus-minus on this team is that 7 of their 9 offensemen are in the minus column. Biggest differential in the league of 20 goals against, 20 more goals against than goals for. It's the biggest differential that any team has with a team that has a record over 500. So what does that mean? They have a winning record despite the fact that they've given up more goals than they've scored, and 20 more goals than they've scored. So if you look at some of the numbers behind this, okay, 14-3-2 in 1-goal games. So when they are in a close game, they're winning it. Their losses on average are just about by 3.4 goals against. So when they lose, they tend not to lose. They've had a couple of blowout games in this season, and so they either win close games or they've lost a couple of 1 goals, but they've gotten blown out in a few as well. So as I mentioned, half their D men are at a +5. The other 3 are at a -10, -14, -18. And then you look at the goaltending. Kepi is 15-9, 346 shots against, which is pretty high up in this league, 3.64 goals against. Scarecrow, who is 9-12, but I've seen him play a few games. I've played against him at one time this season. He is a solid goaltender as well. The 9-12 record is not indicative. So he's had 291 shots, 3.55 goals against. So they're both facing somewhere around 14 to 14.5 shots a game. And again, in this league, that's a little that's maybe a little above average. It's not incredibly high, but it's not really low. Like some guys, again, will go up against 10 shots a game. So, judging by the numbers, it seems like this team, has the ability to pull out a win in a close game. But when they lose, there have been some decisive losses, and so the numbers are a little bit shaky. I guess a loss is a loss, and if you have a winning record, that's all that really matters. And if you keep on winning, but this past week they lost 6 out of 8. They've lost 8 of. They lost 6 out of 9. They've lost 8 out of 11 now in a row. So they're on a bit of a skid, but they have the talent to definitely do better. As we mentioned, they are 3rd in the division, and they need to try and keep pace with the Hartford Wolfpack, and of course the team just above them, the Portland Pirates.
Yeah, and the Portland Pirates, they're a tough team this year. They've got they've got their leading scorer. It's Johansson, and he is their leading scorer. I checked it twice. He has 50 points and 25 goals, 25 assists, and he's a +24. This guy is new to the league. He did not play last year or last season, and he's 10-4 on the year. So for a guy just coming in, he seems to have taken to the league very nicely, and that's kind of tough to do. But we've seen it with a couple guys this year. But the Portland Pirates are sitting, Sibs was just talking about goal differential for the Providence Bruins being -20. The Portland Pirates are kind of at the opposite end of that spectrum. They are a +65, and they're sitting at 201 goals for, and it's a +55, and 144 against. They're 5-4-1 in 1-goal games. So I guess what I would see there is your best chance to beat this team that doesn't get beat very often is to keep them in an extremely close, tight battle. Based on their goal differential, they do not get blown out, and they seem to be in just about every game. Their schedule this past week, they lost. They lost to the Hershey Bears, the San Diego Gulls, and the Hartford Wolfpack. 3 very tough teams to play against, 2 of them sitting up at the top of the league. But they were 6-3 this week. They beat the Texas Stars, the San Antonio Rampage. They beat the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins in a 1-goal game. They actually played the Stars twice this week and beat them both times, 7-4 and 8-5. And we know that that's extremely tough to do, especially if you're playing them twice in a week, because the Stars were coming into that second game saying we're not going to let them beat us twice. and their schedule last week, they lost their first 2 games of the week, and then they went on a 6-game winning streak, and finished the week with a loss. But if they had not lost that last game on Thursday night, they would have been in the midst of another 10-game winning streak. So they had won 9 out of their last 10 games after their 3rd game this week, which is an incredible streak. And they've won 12 of their last 16 games, which is definitely the way that you get yourself towards the top of the division. Other players on their team, their GM is Complex Nades. He is a goaltender at 15-6-1, which is an impressive, outstanding record as a goaltender in this league. It is tough to be much better than that, as most of the goalies will tell you. Their second leading point scorer is Convicted 238. He's got 48 points, 21 goals, 27 assists. Played all 15 games that he's been eligible for this season for them, so he's been a mainstay for sure. And they've got a couple other guys that are sitting up there high in the points. Deer Hunter 2911 has 42. He's got 17 goals, 25 assists. Kingly Snipes is holding true to his name. He's got 27 points. He's got 9 assists and 18 goals. Man, these names. They've got, let me skip over that. JV Dank 13, who's got 29 points, 15 goals, 14 assists, and I don't know, B2NK with a bunch of I's mixed in there. He's got 28 points, 14 goals, 14 assists. It looks to me like they've got a bunch of guys on their roster that can distribute the puck, which is extremely important. And they definitely score after 5 weeks sitting at 201 goals, which is that's a lot of goals to be scoring. I mean, they're tied with the division leader Hartford Wolfpack with 201 goals for. And one of the things that I have found tough in this league is putting up a high number of points on a consistent basis, and the Portland Pirates have certainly done that. So moving on here, I guess we are going to move into the Hartford Wolfpack, and I think, Mike, you want to go ahead and start with them, but I do have something to spotlight with this team.
Absolutely. This team has really been on a roll as of late. With the GM Big Beefy 013 has really done a good job this year. It looks like they have a couple assistant captains over there as well, or assistant GMs, in Cujo and Eddie. This team has been lights out all season. They've been very, very difficult to play and made it hard on a lot of teams across the league. They went 8-1 this last week. Throwing up wins against teams like Bakersfield, San Jose Barracuda, the Ontario Reign, the Providence Bruins, the Portland Pirates. They've really started to make a name for themselves in the Eastern Conference, and I'd really like to see them in a game against Rochester here very soon, if that's coming up at any point in time. But up this upcoming week, they do play Hershey. They do play this. I would say there are 5 big games this week. They have 5 very, very tough games. Hershey's not one of them, as far as compared to these teams. They're playing the San Diego Gulls, the Ice Hogs, the Lake Erie Monsters, the San Antonio Rampage, and the Portland Pirates in 1 week. Talk about running the gauntlet.
Well, they're to cut you off real quick. The Gulls, Ice Hogs, and Monsters are back to back to back.
Yeah, right in a row, and that's a tough schedule. So hopefully they'll be using their best lineup in those games, and make sure that they get those wins against those big teams there. They, like I said, they've been ripping it up all season. They've got several guys that are in the 40s as far as points go. And, I like this team a lot. They're 32-12-1 on the season, and I think they're going to be right there when the smoke clears. They are the defending champions, and I think they're just going to kind of bide their time and walk their way into the playoffs.
Yeah, they're putting themselves in a position here where they're not going to have to fight for it very hard. They're going to fight in a couple of games here this week and in the coming weeks, but man, they have set themselves up nicely to this point, that's for sure. Sibs, go ahead. What do you think? What are your thoughts here on the Wolfpack?
I'm looking a little bit at what their goaltending situation is. Eddie is pretty much their sole goaltender. He's played their games and he's 11-7-1. He's had some really good games, and then the one glaring one I saw this week was against the Wild, where the Wild blanked them 7-0, and so there's no video of that game, and I'm wondering if there was one, but they took it down because one would wonder exactly what happened that game that gave them a 7-0 shellacking against the Wild. But like you said, there's a ton of talent on this team up and down. I think a lot of it, what's interesting, again, and some of the talk, again, about being in Season 2 and who are a lot of these players, there's plenty of them on this team that I have not played with, that I have not seen. And so, again, kudos to the management team to be able to put together this group of guys and win with them, because I think a lot of some of these guys may be very known to a lot of other players in the league, but again, I think a lot of them are not necessarily known to me and maybe to some other players who aren't on the PS4 24/7, but they've put together a good solid squad, and those are some of the best teams, the ones that have players who are not, and not to disparage Jay Claus, but who are not Jay Claus. They're not like well known throughout the league, but as a team, they play incredibly well together, and that is all that really matters. I mean, some of the best teams in any sport that you've ever seen are the ones who didn't have huge superstars on them, who just really played well as a team, and I think that's what Hartford has done. They've found the right pieces that work really well together. These guys have a lot of chemistry, and they are not letting up. And as long as these guys stay on the squad and Hartford doesn't make any big moves, I think to screw up the chemistry, I think they're going to be awfully hard to beat in the end.
Yeah. So on the Wolfpack, I've been talking to Beefy here a little bit, and especially today, and I'm going to kind of tie in our one of our final segments here on our game of the week to the Hartford Wolfpack, because they are in it. And on Monday night, they do play against the Ice Hogs. And not only is this a big game against two of the top teams in the league, but there's a little bit of a rivalry going on here, even though it's East versus West. So Beefy has basically guaranteed the Ice Hogs a fight on Monday night, and he, when I was talking about unsung heroes before, that defensive pair, the Bash brothers as he called them, General Patton and Blade Runner GT, he's putting them up against the Ice Hogs, and he said his team has been chattering. All of his defensive pairs wanted the game. Those two are going to get it. But they want to shut Jay Claus down. They think they can do it. They think they're going to be able to shut down the Ice Hogs on Monday night. I think this is going to be an incredible game to watch. When they play on Monday night, there's also their right winger, Hazy Hype. He's going to be playing right wing for them, and I guess to put it nicely, him and Jay Claus don't get along at all, and there's a bit of a personal rivalry between the two. So I guess Hazy was acquired by the Baby Pens, and or from the Baby Pens by the Wolfpack, and he's going to get inserted into this game. and this game is going to be incredibly fun to watch. There's a rivalry going on here. Everybody get on there and watch this game because it's between two of the top teams in this league, and it should be a lot of fun.
Well, let's not forget what happens when you call teams out. Don't forget to soon about last year, the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins all over the place calling out the Stockton Heat.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
they got exactly what they asked for. So, I would tread lightly when calling out the Jake Laws line and the Ice Hogs. But the Wolfpack is a very talented team. So,
Especially coming off their first loss.
I'm sure that they can, back up some of them words, but it's good that they didn't guarantee victory or anything. But
well, they guaranteed a fight.
They
They guaranteed a fight, and he said, "If we get steamrolled, that reflects my decision."
There you go. So is that your spotlighted game of the week, Jonathan?
That is my spotlighted matchup game of the week.
Well, my spotlighted game of the week is going to be Rochester versus Syracuse, the battle of the Eastern Conference. I think these two teams, they're sitting 1-2 in their division of the Eastern North. Rochester has 68 points. Syracuse has 63. I think this is going to be a really good game. It is taking place on what I believe is, let me look here and just verify before I give out some false information here. But this game is taking place on Thursday at 7:30. It's going to be a really, really good one to watch. It's so far this season, Rochester's taken them down in every game they've played except for one. So, I think Syracuse has some unfinished business with Rochester. They still got 3 more matchups left this season, one of them being this week. Then they have one in Week 9 and one in Week 8 as well. So, this is the battle of the Eastern North, and these two teams have been going at it all season, and I think that's going to be a fantastic game to watch this week.
Well, I'm a big fan of goaltenders, but I'm also a big fan of the Western Pacific, and there's a game coming up on Monday between San Jose and San Antonio, and
yeah,
I mentioned that one, of course, because you're talking about, I'm assuming, 2 of the best goaltenders will be in this game in Perkins Pancake House and Mooner 2014. Hopefully they get to play. Hopefully this game will be streamed, because I think, if you don't see a 2-1 game in this one, I'd be awfully shocked. Or 2-1 overtime or whatever it is. I expect this to be a defensive struggle. These guys are just both tremendous goaltenders, and it's I expect this to be a heck of a matchup. And of course, they're going to be on our goaltender show coming up in a couple of weeks. So hopefully there won't be any animosity between these two guys. But no, they're both actually good people as well as good goaltenders. And I'm really looking for this to be an interesting meeting. It was a 3-2 Golds win in the preseason. I'm just trying to look at some of the other matchups they may have had this year. But, these two teams are just tremendous to watch. I've been watching Perkins a lot, and the Barracuda team, again, I think they are quietly an unsung team just because of, not getting a lot of discussion about them. But they are a solid team up and down. And of course, with their goaltending, how can you not want to pick them to maybe be in the cup in the end? So, good game coming up between these two teams, the Rampage and the Barracuda, on Monday night.
I'd just like to say thank you to everybody for listening. We have passed the halfway point in the season, and we are on our way on the downward slope here. So, there's a lot of teams out there that are chasing some other teams down, and I just wish everybody luck moving forward in the season. We're past the halfway point, so let's get it rolling here.
Yeah, and finish up those rosters if you can, but don't be afraid to wait until the last minute so we have something to talk about on our show on June 12th with all the GMs that we're going to have on.
So we've got our weekly show next Saturday again, but also this week on, I believe it's Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, I'll be talking to Vibes Digital in my T-Sibs interview show, and possibly JLM 1410 as well. We don't know that for sure, but Vibes will definitely be on to talk about his team and about LG as well. So tune in for that one.
Yeah, absolutely. I will be there.
I guess that's it, guys. We will talk to you all next week, and good luck to everybody in Week 6.